What's going on, everybody? Situation here again. I am a day late, unfortunately, because I have a job and I've been kind of working some late hours, so I've been meaning to cover this as soon as it dropped, but was not able to, unfortunately, but better late than never. What we finally have been waiting for Bungie to come and say, because it's been too quiet on their part, and we really needed them to come out and say something about what they were doing with the future. And they finally did it with their Frontiers update that's coming next year. So they laid it out for us. There's a couple expansions that are happening that we know of, and then we'll get more obviously when we get closer to the Behemoth, which the second expansion's called. But just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on what I kind of read, and then give like a final, synopsis of my thought process and maybe some things. But there's gonna be annual expansions still. They are going to be two medium-sized expansions instead of one big one like we had been used to receiving for the past how many years. They stated, pretty sure they stated they were just gonna be small, like updates in one of the previous things when the whole drama was happening with the layoffs and all that, and with the final shape. But it looks like it's gonna be two medium-sized updates, which is really, really good. I was really surprised to hear that. That sounds good. And it's gonna be non-linear stories, so you don't really have to like do everything in succession. So that's kind of good. You can kind of do it in your own little way, and it'll all tie together at the end. They can like go back to that linear format if they need to, but we'll touch on that later. They're going back to seasons again, which is kind of odd because they made this big push about, oh, we're going away from seasons. No one likes seasons, but I mean, let's be honest. Acts are, or episodes are seasons. Like, there's no like, just go with it. Just try to find a format that works. Don't try to rebrand it and call it something else. Don't just call it seasons. Anywho, so going back to that, because people really didn't like the layout of the episodes. I didn't mind them, but they were not very well received. So that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's going back to like the four major updates instead of the three that they were talking about with the episodes. And so that's also good. So we get a little bit more content constantly instead of like, maybe some longer gaps, which is good. Each expansion will launch with a major update at the start of the season, and then the second update will come, 3-ish months later. We'll see how that works, because in the past they've had to push things, to make the seasons longer so they can make these expansions work. So we will see how that happens. The core, so that means that the core games will get refreshed each time that there's the major update, strikes, exotic missions, and then like things like that will fall in line, like Onslaught was a new game mode like that. We will get some rewards that drop with the seasons, like usual, like weapons, armor, exotics, new mods, new weekly events, which I kind of was like in my previous video, like talking about like the whole like TWAB with the sword event. I wonder if I had a feeling if this falls in line, obviously. I was like, maybe they're testing out some new events to keep the game fresh and people like just having like, more fun essentially. I wonder if these weekly events will be that. It would be a nice touch to the game, add a little bit of life to it, make it change, so that way can have a little more fun, just make maybe goofier builds. New features, meta. There'll be like some balances updates and meta updates. So to do like they usually do, how they take a pass at all the weapons and the sandbox and like PvE and PvP, and make things a little different, so it's not too crazy. So that's not gonna change. We get to the core game. it gets accessed. There's gonna be a change. It gets access through the new portal screen. Think like in-game LFG that we have now, just with the different modes. So we'll touch on that later. They're gonna modernize the UI or directory and make it easier to find and launch activities, which is good. They did a good job of like updating in like the launch thing from like your quests, so making it a little more streamlined should be good. We'll see. They're gonna rework the reward model system that they have, because a lot of people are just like, I don't know why I'm doing all this stuff, because I don't feel rewarded a whole lot. They're gonna have more improved challenge customization. I think that it could help things fall in line more with like the day one raids contest mode that a lot of us really like to do, because it adds more challenge, it adds more fun to the game. Instead of like just the one day a year, we can now pick this, maybe if they add it. That's just what my mind kind of gravitates to. We'll go on that, we'll touch on that more a little bit later too. They're not just going to increase the incoming damage like they have in the past, which made a lot of people upset. And it wasn't a matter of like having better skill. It was just kind of like, oh, how can we like, cheese this spot, or how can we like make it as easy as possible. So it'll require you to be a little more like finessed, hopefully, and actually have like a little more skill to it, which is good. And by doing that, they're gonna have like additional modifiers that should make it more exciting. They're gonna have higher level legendary gear, something like adept weapons or artifice armor. So more loot equals good loot. If you don't know, like adept weapons were weapons that you could get in like the high end modes, like Grandmaster, Nightfalls. You'd get like your adept weapons, like the Slammer. It's just weapons that have like a little extra, you can slot extra mods on them that make them like a little bit better, and they're usually a little bit more sought after because they have a different like color scheme too, so it's actually kind of nice. And then artifice armor, if you don't know what that is just armor that has an extra slot that you can put another mod onto that doesn't take any slots to put in that bonus, where it's like resilience, which is normally like a 2 or a 4 cost mod. It will grant you 3 extra points in like resilience if you pick resilience, and it won't cost you anything. So it's got benefit to it, but only if you need to hit that next tier. So it can provide benefit, but it obviously doesn't always make it better, essentially. But going back to that customization of the challenge that they want to do, you can activate modifiers that range from new combatant abilities, combat challenges that kind of make you play differently. So maybe you have to do a little bit more stuff with swords or something. Let's say your playstyle is completely changed up. Incentives to changing your build crafting and raising the power target. So kind of like what we already have, but there's a couple extra things that they're gonna maybe throw in there. You will start out by selecting the base difficulty, and then that will just set basic mod like things for that difficulty tier. So if you just pick like regular, for example, it will just be like, oh, here's a couple modifiers. Where then you pick like hardcore, for example, it might throw on some extra modifiers, so that makes it hardcore. So it just does that part. And then you can obviously tune that later, but depending on the difficulty, that determines how many challenge modifiers you can add. So you can't just go into regular and then just throw on a bunch of modifiers. It has to be the higher tier difficulty stuff will allow you to pick more modifiers to go crazy with, and then those higher tier difficulties will have different like modifiers that you would be able to select compared to what like a regular one would be. That's kind of nice. They are going to increase the rewards that players get for playing at a higher base difficulty, applying modifiers, and personal bonuses like your power and artifacts, stuff like that. You will earn a team rating for the activity. It's shared. It's not something that's just, you know, I need to kill everything so I get the bonus. It's a team effort. So if you guys do really well as a team, then you guys will just get really good rewards. So your team rating gets multiplied by the bonuses you have, which will be your reward rating. So that team rating you get, and then all the bonuses that you have will be like, it'll be like a multiplier, and then based on what that number comes out to, you will get that tier of rewards essentially. It seems like it could be maybe a little bit better way to target farm some like prisms or shards, stuff like that, because not a lot of people like to just run grandmasters over and over and over. You can maybe throw in some different modifiers, have a little bit more fun, and in turn it won't be the same as like the previous run that you did, so it won't be as boring, and then you still get rewards for it, and you still get like rewarded pretty well. So that's the good thing. So that could be like a positive for that. Little note to take note of: the bonuses and modifiers obviously don't apply to Crucible, because you can't really add modifiers to Crucible. It's already got like its element with all the like just the PvP, like the unknown aspect, right, of how good the people are, or maybe you just have an off game, stuff like that. So it's already kind of like set in there. But they are working on something for Crucible in that, so that's good. The portal that I previously touched on, that you will access a lot of this stuff through. They're not bringing like the fun puzzle game Portal from back in the day to Destiny, obviously. It's just where you will go to select these different things, right? So think team stuff like raids and all that, and then Crucible. But there's gonna be different modes. Like they have solo ops, which is 1 to 3 players. That low time commitment, so you don't have to try to like set aside 30-45 minutes for a dungeon, and then you can kind of just do that and just go on your merry way. So it's kind of more designed for solo, but you can have fun with it with the team. Maybe it will help people that are like, they don't like solo. Bungie doesn't like solo players. They just want to force us to play with people, and to that I just say, suck it up. I don't know. I've gotten really tired of hearing that whole thing. So this is probably their like, okay guys, we heard you. This is what we can like maybe do to help out. So solo ops is more geared towards solo, but you can still play with the team. There's fire team ops, which is activities for match made or pre-made teams of 3. Think strikes and modes like onslaught, the quick 10 wave onslaught. Flashpoint ops is another match made or pre-made teams of 6. It will come in a future season. Think of the recent six player activities that we kind of get. It's gonna be like for those. There's Pinnacle Ops, 3-player activity that is a little more challenging. So think dungeons, exotic missions, full length onslaught, which is the 50 waves, stuff like that. There's gonna be a Crucible selection to pick if you want to go into that. It's got there's the core Crucible for solo teams. So you can pre-mate or go in it by yourself, obviously. It will have its own exclusive reward pool. Using this portal will also be how you get to like events such as Iron Banana. For those who don't know, we call Iron Banner Iron Banana. I don't know why, it's just fun. And then things like Festival of the Lost, like your seasonal events like Guardian Games, things like that. Each category will have bonus rewards like specific weapons, specific armor, and currencies for upgrading or buying things. So I'm not really sure how that's gonna pan out. I don't know if maybe Crucible is gonna have like, they'll have this currency in there, so you kind of get. I hope that's not how it is, so you don't get like forced to play Crucible if you don't want to play Crucible. I don't think they'll do that, but could be a thing to maybe be on the lookout for. The things that have the bonus rewards will be at the top of that list that when you're going and looking through it, so you don't have to like sift through a bunch of stuff. It's just right at the top, super quick to find, so that's really good. They went on to talk about their thought process. We all talked about how like, oh, are we done with just like the multi-year stuff? Is it just gonna be like solo single drops that kind of have like a story and then they're done? Nope, they're going back into multi-year sagas, which is kind of cool. So it kind of puts something out there that we have something to look forward to, because that's obviously when Destiny is at its best. So they're gonna have what's called, right now it's called Codename Apollo and then Codename Behemoth. So they want to do a multi-year saga again, which is really good. Non-linear, so it feels a little bit more fresh and different, so you don't just get in the cadence of like, oh, I gotta go and do this, I gotta go and do this, and I gotta do this. So it's you can kind of do it how you want to, which is kind of nice. So they gave the example of, you can do the story A, B, C, D if you want to, but you can start in A and then go check out something that's over in what would be considered part D, and then go finish off part B and then go to C. You can do that. So that's kind of nice that they'll do that. I wonder how that will work, because it is very difficult to kind of have a non-linear story and have it come together at the end and make sense. So I hope they can pull it off, because if that's the case, that's a big W in their books, and it just adds the fresh and exciting factor, like, oh, we don't know, we can do it however we want. So they don't not telling us what to do anymore. So it's kind of nice. The Pale Heart was kind of cool because it just made sense to do a linear kind of like thing, but I like that we'll be able to kind of pick and go do this over here and go to and then be like, you know what, I'm gonna go check out this over here, and then I'll come back to this one over here. You will need to go back and do that other stuff though at some point, because it does progress your story. So that's really good, because what they said is that they won't be time gating things anymore, and that's really huge, because I know a lot of people are like super fed up with the time gated stuff. I kind of don't mind it, just because it kind of like, I know I can come back and do that thing like the next week. I kind of have something to look forward to. I just worry for myself. I'm like, if I blow through it, then I have nothing to do. I could find stuff to do, but it's just kind of nice to have like something that's like, just okay, I can go do this, and then next week I'll come back and I'll do this. But I understand why people don't like it, because it's just kind of forced upon you. It's nice to be able to make that decision on your own. So I totally understand that. So that is kind of nice that they are no longer time gating, and the story just progresses as you completed it. That's at least for Codename Apollo. For Behemoth, they mentioned that they could make it so you may have to go back to that linear. You have to go A, B, C, D, but they're not going to force it on us every time. So it might be good to be able to like just maybe like have like one or two seasons that are, or excuse me, one or two expansions are kind of go at your own pace, and you can pick whatever you want. And then that third expansion, like, oh, we're gonna do this like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they'll go back to with that next expansion, be like, oh, you can kind of do whatever you want again. So that's kind of nice. So they can all, like I said, they can always reserve the right to be able to go back and make it a linear story if they feel that the story makes the most sense being a linear type mission set. So just keep that in mind, so don't think it's just completely done. So I'm gonna put this expansions for the next two up on the screen, so that way you can kind of see it too. You probably already seen it. There's gonna be, like I said, the two expansions, Apollo and Behemoth. Summer 2025 is Apollo. We get the summer update. We get the rewards pass like usual. We're gonna get new stories, new locations, missions, weapons, gear, raids and dungeons. That's huge, because we were kind of curious as to like, what are they gonna do? Are they done with raids? Are they done with dungeons? So nope, they're gonna be having more raids and dungeons, so that's good. So more day one raids, hopefully. We will have, and that's in the expansion, the seasonal update will have new and reprised activities, gear and artifact mods, new modifiers and challenges, sandbox meta, and then new events. So typical just stuff that happens in the season that gets updated as you go. I think Guardian Games for like the events, or Festival of the Lost, the sandbox chain, like balancing that they always do, new modifiers, I think like artifact mods and stuff like that, just other little things that get put into like the little things that you do, whether it be like Solar Surge or something like that. But they're going to add new ones. And then the rewards pass, you'll obviously get, there's an exotic weapon and an ornament. There's weapons and armor of the legendary style that you can earn. Same thing with ornaments. Gear upgrade resources, so currencies, things like that, cosmetics, and all that stuff. So it's a lot of stuff. Is like, it sounds like it's pretty much the same. It's just going back to that old cadence of expansions, but they just may not be as beefy as what they used to be and what people used to seeing. So like I said, summer of 2025 we have Apollo, and then winter of 2025 we have Behemoth. My kind of overall thoughts are, it's really good news, obviously, overall, because they kind of are telling us like, hey, we have a plan, please stick it out with us as we do this. I kind of see it as a triple-edged sword, which doesn't make any sense because you can't have 3 edges on a sword. It kind of boils down to, how can Bungie get new players? How can they keep the veterans entertained while trying to bring back, veterans that had played for a bit and then left, or new players that had come in and left? How can they, keep all 3 sides happy? Essentially, it's going to be tough, but it feels like this is a good start, as long as they're actually listening and they try to deliver on this. That's the big thing. So like I said, it's good news overall. Bungie needs to now be held accountable, because we've been promised like things like this in the past. They keep saying like, we're gonna make UI changes, make it easier for the new player, onboarding and stuff like that. They talked about that a little bit in this as well. I just kind of wanted to wait until there's a little bit more info. They said that they're working on it, so that's cool, but they've said that in the past and it didn't really turn out all that well. The new onboarding was better, but it was still really bad. And then how many times are people going to keep forgiving Bungie for saying these things and then not delivering before they actually just totally just give up? Like, I'm done. It's going to be tough. I think they could do it. They're pretty good. It obviously comes down to what a lot of like the big streamers and YouTube personalities say. It's kind of on upper management. They're really at the blame for a lot of the really poor decisions that were made. So the devs are just doing their best to make a good game. They need to be transparent and keep us in the loop of things. They can't just go dark for a while and not have something. They should always be kind of telling us something that they're working on, or how maybe the update's going, or how a certain thing in the update is going, because that's going to keep people happy. And they're not like, well, they just said this and then they just left us in the dark. Think like the best way to do it is like, with the Avengers game that came out, and then just they were talking and then just went dark, and everyone's like, what the heck? Oh, they must be working on something. And a lot of other people are like, no, they're totally done with the game. Like, there's problems. So they have to keep us in the loop and be transparent, because then that's how they're going to gain a lot of trust back. I'm optimistic that they could pull this off, but I understand why people are cautious. A lot of people have been burned before. Obviously, having like a full-time job and a family on top of like playing this, I don't really have to like worry like so much than if I was like in high school, where I just was studying and it was just, I was single, didn't have to do anything, and I was just playing the game a lot. Obviously it'd be more annoying with a lot of stuff, but because my free time is kind of filled up elsewhere with some things, I don't have to really worry about a whole lot of stuff. I can just have fun with the game and just hop off. But I understand why people are cautious right now. So because of with all the stuff that upper management has done, they're just worried. And then also people were just done, because they're like, oh cool, we got to the end of the final shape, and it ended really nicely, and I'm good. I don't need to continue. So that kind of stinks, but I understand. I like how you don't have to. Hopefully, they've been saying that you wouldn't have to have followed Destiny to like be able to get into Destiny. So if they can somehow figure that out too, that's super good, because then any new player can jump in and just start having fun and collecting gear, and that's what we kind of want, right? Because we need the new players to start coming in to give more life back into Destiny. They need to nail this UI overhaul that they've been talking about for how many times now, because it's pretty unanimous with what new people say how bad it is, and it currently is. It was worse before, and then it just is now bad. So they need to figure that out. We've been told a lot of these things before, so hopefully they can deliver on a lot of this stuff. I'm optimistic. I think they'll be able to pull it off because they were able to do Final Shape. I'm hoping that they can do it again and get a lot of people excited for Destiny again, so the game starts to thrive again, so we can have a really fun game and modes aren't just like stagnant, kind of like Crucible is right now. So I do really enjoy making this type of content. It went on a little longer, but I do enjoy it. I appreciate that you even clicked on my video, so thank you for doing that if you did, and if you stuck around. If you just need help with stuff, just feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to try and help you out, because it gives me a little bit of a challenge too, to try to do something new. So I do appreciate that you took the time to click on my video and watch it, and I will catch you later. Peace. It's called art, Margaret.